Okay, board, we have a quorum. We're going to call to order at this time the June 15th, 2021 regular board meeting of the Tuscaloosa City Schools. We will have a period of silence and we will follow that by the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone. Board, before we adopt the regular board meeting agenda, there are 3 items that we would like to add to this agenda. You've been placed with those items in front of you. So we would like to add what would become 9B, and that's discuss, approve bid 2021-2 for Skyland Elementary School parking lot renovation project. Item 9C it would become, which is executive session to discuss consideration that this board is willing to accept for sale of real estate property. And then if the board approves amending the agenda, 9D would become discuss, approve real estate sales agreement. So board, if everyone is in agreement, may I have a motion to amend the agenda to add items 9B, 9C, and 9D.
So moved, Mr. Chair, as noted.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor to amend this agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, so those items will become 9B, 9C, and 9D. So board, may I have a motion to adopt the June 15th, 2021 regular board meeting agenda as amended?
So moved, sir.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? This agenda will be adopted. Item 4, approve the minutes of the June 1st, 2021 regular board meeting. Board may have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second from Ms. Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Those will be approved. Item number 5, public comments on non-agenda items, of which there are none. Brings us to item 6, informational reports from the superintendent and executive administrative staff. 6A will be an update on teachers' excellence and accountability for mathematics and science, also known as TEAMS. Dr. Cameron, good evening, sir.
Good evening. I realize I put a lot of information for you to read over the weekend, so I want to take a few minutes to hit some key points. For TEAMS, an eligible teacher has to satisfy the criteria of holding a valid teaching certificate in the middle level or secondary math, science, or computer science. They have to teach approved courses, and they have to teach full-time in math and science. Any teacher that meets these eligibility requirements, they're eligible to be a TEAMS teacher. We have positions opening such as Teams 6 through 8 math, Teams 9 through 12 science. So we have those positions posted on our website. When you apply for the position to be a TEAMS teacher, you meet the eligibility, you will become, there's no selection process, you'll become a TEAMS teacher. This is a differentiated pay scale for our TEAMS teacher for math, science, and computer science. I put the FAQs in there for you to hit to look at the differentiated pay scale, because you could look at a bachelor's degree with 0 years experience. They could make $5,000 more above the state salary matrix, to go as far as a person having a doctorate and 27 years of experience. They can make up to $21,000 more than over the state salary matrix. So you have that differentiated pay scale. So these teachers, if you're applying to be a TEAMS teacher, you will be placed on a contract, and thus you will forfeit your rights to the Students First Act, which means you'll lose your status. You'll be placed on a contract. A principal is placed on a contract. A superintendent and a CSFO is placed on a contract. This person, if they choose to be a TEAMS teacher, would also be placed on a contract. There are two types of contract. There's a preliminary contract, which you can be on a preliminary contract up to 6 years, and that means you're moving toward applying for certification for an advanced contract. And I'll tell you what the criteria is for an advanced contract in just a moment. But to be an advanced contract, you can be on the contract for up to 3 years, and it is renewable. But to be part of an advanced contract, you have a specialized certification or credential in the National Institute for STEM Education, the National Board of Professional Teaching Standards, early adolescence or early adolescence and young adulthood math or science, or it can be something that's deemed by the Alabama State Department of Education or any other criteria established by the Alabama State Department of Education. Now, if you're a 20-year veteran and you're a team's math, science, or computer science teacher, you can be offered a contract for up to 5 years. There's another part of the bill that is a hard to staff supplement, and that's a $5,000 per year on an annual basis of a participating teacher that teaches in a designated school by the Alabama State Department of Education. And there are certain criteria. So they have either it's out-of-field teaching assignments, poverty level, geographic location, population density, or any other factors identified by the State Department of Education. This is deemed each year. Tuscaloosa City Schools has one school that the State Department has deemed as a hard-to-staff school, and that is Westlawn Middle School. The employment would begin in the 2020-22 school year, and they would be, team's teacher would be on a 189-day contract. Now they're on 187, so we'll have 2 days of professional development that have to go forward. Now, we are having internal discussions because every school system in the state has teams. So what can we do to be different, that we can attract and recruit different parts of people, either from the state of Alabama or from our surrounding states? So we're having those internal discussions, looking at it, and we have a possibility of coming back to the board and recommending. Now, I know I've thrown a lot at you, so what questions do you have as far as teams? Yes, ma'am.
So explain to me why Westlawn, as best you can, is a hard-to-staff school, or why have we been noted to be a hard-to-staff school?
So the one I think it comes either out-of-field teaching assignments or the poverty level. I think that's why the State Department deemed Westlawn as being a hard-to-staff school.
So you said the teaching levels?
Out-of-field teaching assignments, they may have the emergency certificate or the alternative certificates are just out of field. More than likely, it's probably due to the poverty level. But it could be either one of those two. But I lean toward the poverty level.
And you said that's the only school in our entire system?
In our system, yes, ma'am.
So, let's say I've been teaching history, I get my certificate, now I'm doing the teams thing. I've been with the system, I'm a tenured teacher. So during that period, does your tenure go on hold if you're not successful at it, and you go back to your previous job if it's available?
So the way the bill reads, the way I read it, is you're on an advanced contract. You have a one-time reversion right, but that's the only under an advanced contract. It doesn't follow under a preliminary contract. You have the one-time reversion right to that you can go back and still have your status. But that's the only thing in the bill that I can discern. And that question has been asked, and they shoot me right back to that part of the bill.
Any other questions for Dr. Cameron?
Just emphasis back on Dr. Jackson's question. You know, is that hard to staff school to put emphasis on selecting national certified teachers because they're making more money to come in there? Is that like more of an incentive?
You know, we have our pilot program at Westlawn Middle School with our national board, so we have more national board teachers at Westlawn than we've had before, either in the pipeline or receiving it. Now, to say, I believe what they say is we have a more difficult time staffing Westlawn due to a myriad of reasons, of assignments, just the designations they've had in the past. That's the only reason I can discern why that would be a hard
Do you
staff
believe
school.
that will help incentivize?
I think it will, and it's certainly not going to hurt to come in to do that. Now, no, this is on an annual basis, so next year that may not be a hard staff school. We may have more than one, or we may not have any, but it's on an annual basis that the State Department deems that.
Yes, sir.
And can I just tag on to what Mr. Lucas just asked? So, and I'm going to put you on the spot, Dr. Cameron, but if I'm a math teacher at Westlawn that's been deemed a hard-to-staff school, and I pursue national board and get national board, what supplement, what might the pay difference be from the current salary schedule to maxing out on teams?
So you're going to get a salary, like I mentioned before, if you're a novice teacher, a bachelor coming in, you're going to make $5,000 more than the state salary matrix. You're also, because you're at Westlawn, you're going to make $5,000 on top of that for being a hard staff. So you can make $10,000 more than what you currently make on the salary schedule. Now that goes into, when they're looking at this the salary matrix, it goes into years of experience and degree level. And let me have an example pulled up for you. So say, for instance, you are a 10-year veteran with a master's degree. You will make $17,659 more over the state salary metrics. And if you're teaching at Westlawn, you'll make another $5,000 on top of that. So you can be making over $21,600. And then it goes, yes, sir.
Go ahead.
And then it just flows on down the line. The more years of service, the degree, the higher the compensation would be.
I know you said that y'all are gonna come back to us, but do you know how soon you'll be coming back? Because seems like if we are gonna be competitive in this and gonna have more incentives for people, the sooner we get out there and start talking about it, you know, the greater the chances of us attracting people to our system.
Right. So I want everybody to knock on wood right now, because we got a call today, and somebody was calling about a science opening, and I looked, and we didn't have any science openings, which is abnormal. We have 3 math openings, which is abnormal. I'm not saying we're not having it in the future, but we're at a good place right now on June 15th. But we will continue to have those internal discussions and looking at a possible next board meeting, because we need to do it sooner rather than later.
Did you
for the
hire them
incentive.
unassigned?
No, so we got them. As soon as Pam's great about going in, and as soon as we find something, she goes through the posting, she sends them out. So if we need to hire them unassigned, we'll hire them unassigned.
we need to hire
We
them
have no
unassigned.
problem doing that.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and you may have mentioned this, so my brain is processing what you're saying. What about individuals that want to transfer from the other 2 schools to Westlawn? How are we going to, and I'm saying we.
Sure.
How are.
Sure. They can't. So we have our transfer window that's open, internal transfer window open June the 25th. But you have to have an opening to go in there. So they have the opportunity to do that. Yes, ma'am.
So then that still leaves a void.
We're robbing Peter to pay Paul until after June 25th. Yes, ma'am.
And then tell me again, how long are they saying that they're going to stay at Westlawn?
There's no amount of time that, again, it's on an annual basis, the 5,000, there's no amount of time
Because I don't want to
dictated.
rob Peter to pay Paul, then you decide, I'm ready to go back. I don't want to see that kind of going back and
Sure.
forth.
And it's a possibility, because we open up our internal transfer window probably from April until June each year, just for that.
That hard-to-staff supplement goes away if Westlawn's ever taken off that list, is that correct?
Well, it's on an annual basis, so next year we may not have it, or we may have more schools other than Westlawn. It's just whatever the state is deeming for that, they use in their criteria.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just comment in closing some of this is, we're in a tough spot with math and science. I know you guys know that. And Dr. Cameron said this, and we do, the ideas that you may have or questions you may have on, how can we recruit folks from outside the state? Because our state, I think, is going to be pretty attractive for math and science teachers at this time, which is great. And that's the purpose behind the teams piece. But then we've still got to be able to differentiate Tuscaloosa City schools. So, we've looked at some creative solutions in the past for other positions like relocation. We've looked at other things like that. And that's something that those are the things we're talking about internally, and ask you guys just the same with ideas or questions you may have related to that. I think that's helpful, how we can look differently at this as a school system.
And reiterating what Mr. Lucas said, when do you anticipate coming before the board with those things that we can do to differentiate our system?
We want to put something out there that works, or that we think will have an appeal. And like Dr. Cameron said, right now we're not in a terrible position in filling this. So it could be we have some concepts next board meeting, but I also don't want to rush it. And remember, part of this too is we've got employees, current math and science teachers who have the option to move into teams. So, and right now I think we've got 30 or so
32.
interested. Pardon?
32.
32 who are expressing interest in moving from their current role to a team's role. So we got to run that course and see what that looks like at this time. Thank you.
Does any board member have any follow-up questions for either Dr. Cameron or Dr. Daria? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 6B is Mr. J. Duke, we will receive the financial reports for October 1, 2020 through April 30th, 2021. Good evening, Mr. Duke.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, board members, superintendent, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate the opportunity to bring you the financial statements through April the 30th. So that's October 1st through April 30th, that's our 7th month or 58% into the budget. I will dive right into sales tax. And I am very pleased to say on the sales tax chart that, in fact, I've got kind of a little chart there, meter, showing the actual versus budget. And we are not only ahead of budget, we are ahead of last year's actual. So we are good in both of those places. So sales tax continue to be strong, so that's good. Moving along to property tax, we're kind of winding down in property tax. And we have already met budget on our property tax, and we have a little bit more that'll trickle in, which will kind of lead me to the next slide. And I touched on this last time, and I kind of wanted to just show you kind of like a pie chart of how we collect almost 80% of our property tax in December and January. Now it's winding down to just a trickle, but again, we have already met our budget on property tax, so that's excellent. Car tag taxes, I changed up my chart a little bit this time and just put three simple bar graphs there. And we are very similar to last year's actual, slightly below budget, but nothing to be alarmed about. And I'll kind of touch on that a little bit. If you've seen car lots here lately or heard, there's not a lot of cars on the lot to sell. Therefore, the tag tax is going to trickle down from that. So I think that's the explanation. I won't hang around on that, but I think if we see the car inventories pick back up, I got a feeling car tag taxes will pick back up. Our management report, I know there's a lot of numbers on this report and it gets kind of busy, but if you'll just focus there, kind of in the middle in the green is the revenue, and up at the top, and we are ahead of our budget, so that is good. At 77 million is our year-to-date actual. Drop down to the expenditures. There's several categories. I'll jump to the total expenditures column. We've spent $58.4 million. On a percentage basis, we've only spent 53% of our budget, whereas we are 58% into the year. So we are 5% below budget, and that's huge. That's good. That's strong. So we're feeling good. Again, that's our general fund. I will close tonight with a little bit different report. In fact, I'm not sure I've ever done this report, but Superintendent and I were talking several weeks ago about concern about our average daily membership. The acronym is ADM, our student count. So Superintendent asked me to look around the state and just see how we knew we had lost a few students. So I looked at comparable systems around the state and realized maybe it's not so bad. We lost 94, and if you'll look at this, of the 7 or 8 somewhat comparable systems that I looked at, all but 2 lost. We lost less than 1%. I think that's excellent. It says a lot about a lot of people in this room that did a hard work, and our executive staff and the entire system. You can see there several comparable systems lost 3% of their student body. What I found very interesting, I pulled back and looked at statewide, and if you'll see in that map there, ladies and gentlemen, the state lost over 8,000 students, and I want to put that in perspective for you. That's the equivalent of taking Hale, Greene, Pickens, and Fayette County school systems and just taking those students out of the mix. So we think that, relatively speaking, we were in pretty good shape, and we'll continue to try to get those kids back. One reason I'm presenting that is that ADM drives the funding for our foundation program. So I always keep an eye on that, and I thought I'd just share that with you tonight. With that, I'll pause and see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. Any questions for Mr. Duke tonight?
They're keeping that level though this year, right?
They are. That's a good point, Mr. Lucas. The state has done what they call a hold harmless, or we're giving you a 1-year pass, I call it. And so whatever you had the previous year, they kind of level funded it and made up that gap. But going forward to next year, that may not be there. So it's important that we not only kind of stop the bleeding, so to speak, but then try to get those kids back. And of course, this team has been nonstop on that since COVID hit last year, and we'll continue to do that.
So we gotta go out there and recruit 188 more students, right?
Not nonstop.
But just a point, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but where the largest reduction was, and I'm looking at our folks to make sure I'm saying this right, I think was our kindergarten cohort is where we saw most of that 94 you see. It was kindergarten is down from the year before. Am I factual on that? Right. So that's a question for us, is do we have a lower student in this cohort moving forward? Or do we have kindergartners who did not enroll this year, who will be coming to us now, either kindergarten or first? So we won't really know that until August for sure, but most of that 94 is in the K grade, in the K level.
That's the case, that's a plus for us.
Any other questions for Mr. Duke? All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Item 7, introduction of motions, resolutions for first reading, of which there are none, takes us to item 8, the consent agenda items 8A and 8B. Board may have a motion to approve consent agenda items 8A and 8B.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second,
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Those will be approved. This takes us to item 9, the regular agenda items for final adoption. 9A, approve the superintendent's recommendation regarding changes in personnel. Dr. Cameron, good evening again, sir.
Good evening. I will go through the superintendent's recommendations regarding changes in personnel, as well as the 2 supplemental lists. We'll start on page 1. You have 7 resignations, 1 request for a leave of absence, 6 new certified personnel, 1 rehire of certified personnel, 3 transfers of certified personnel. You have 1 transfer of administrative personnel, 2 reassignments of certified personnel, 1 3-day suspension for classified personnel pursuant to the Students First Act, and 1 summer learning academy. To the first supplemental page, you have 1 resignation, 1 declination, 9 new certified personnel, and 5 transfer of certified personnel. And I want to pause right here. The recommendation, I want to make sure my notes were clear with the theater split between Central High School and Westlawn Middle School, and then the choir split between Central High School and Westlawn Middle School, just to bring that out, that on number 4 and number 13 of that page. To the second page of the supplemental list, you have 2 rehire of certified personnel, 5 new support personnel, and 1 2021-22 part-time extended day tutor. To the second supplemental list, you have 4 resignations, 3 new certified personnel, 2 rehire of certified personnel, and 2 summer learning academy.
Okay, Board, first, are there any set-asides for a separate vote and discussion by number, please? Okay, hearing no set-asides, Board may have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendations.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second by Ms. Williams. Questions, discussion by number only, please, for Dr. Cameron. Dr. Cameron, briefly, if you can, number 3 on the second supplemental list.
He is going to be an assistant, he's going to be an assistant principal in Jefferson County School System.
Board, any other? Board, any other questions for Dr. Cameron? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Those will be approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Takes us to item 9B, discuss approved bid 2021-2 for Skyland Elementary School parking lot renovation. Mr. Smith, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent. Today I'm presenting the Skyline parking lot reconstruction. The bid was open today, 2 p.m. at the facilities office. There were 3 bidders. Civil Works bid at $178,500. Dominion Incorporated, $217,051.05, and ST Bond at $171,900.88. The lowest responsible bidder was ST Bond at $171,900.88. The budget for this construction project was $195,000. This brought our underage to $23,099.12. This is a PSEA contract, number 0285F. Contract will be signed, and we'll be looking at time to project the start date within 3 weeks, and the projected start date for this project will be July 12th, and completion by August 6th. Are there any questions?
Excellent work, Mr. Smith. Board may have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second by Mr. Lucas. Questions for Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Is that just covering the lower part of the lot, or is it gonna,
It's gonna cover the main teachers' parking lot and go all the way out to the street, to almost to the highway.
or to the highway?
Yes, sir.
Are there any spots that need patching or anything in the other area? Are they gonna look at those?
We will look at that because of the project, how it is, if there is any other opportunities. We just discussed that. We will be looking for opportunities so we don't have to come back for other things. So, yes, we will be looking at those opportunities.
Thank you, sir.
So for me, can you explain to me, when it comes under budget, what do we do with it's not excess money, it was budgeted money?
Yes,
but
ma'am.
how does this go back into the budget, or do you look at the potholes that may need to be repaired?
Well, that's an excellent point. What we try to do is, number one, we try to stay on the budget, of course. We don't just, spend the money, But we look deeper into the project, and some things we might see that need to be taken care of, we go ahead and do that. Then, at some point, we go back and we pool that money, we might do another project, or put it on another opportunity. So, but we do want to, when we start something, we want to go ahead and make sure that's completed and done well. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Mr. Smith? Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That will be approved. Item number 2, executive session, discuss consideration board is willing to accept for sale of real property. Mr. Ryan, good evening, sir.
Good evening. So at this time, I'm going to ask the board to consider adjourning to an executive session to do exactly what you described. Consider the consideration is willing to accept for the sale of real property.
Okay, board, may I have a motion to approve adjourning into executive session for that purpose?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed to adjourning? Okay, we will now adjourn into executive session and then return.